You'll grab that if it falls. So we have a good group, and I think there's still questions left. We asked a lot, but I think there's still questions left. And for everybody in this group, because of the high ceilings and the lack of rugs, you'll need to talk into this. And so if you have a question, you may need to move. I'm going to put this one over here or stand up. There are people online from all over the world also looking at you. Don't be nervous. But it's a good turnout. We answered a lot of great questions, but I think half the people here are just excited to see you two and be able to ask the same questions to you two. You've got some familiar faces.
Hello. Really nice to see the familiar faces from times past.
Laura, would you do a quick short intro for the recording?
Are you going to?
No, you go ahead. It's your thing.
All right. Yeah, that's for Paul. You gotta manage it.
Just quick so the people watching the recording know what's going on.
Sure. This is, I'm Laura. I've been a part of the conversations of the amazing Red Door healing work. We are out currently at Keddie Farms, my farm in Aurora, Oregon. And among us here are interested Red Door practitioners. Who in here currently has the Red Bowl? This corner. This corner of the world have been doing the Red Door practices, some more active, some less active, and want to get active again. And this half of the room is coming with questions and interest on the Red Door. Any other things you think I need to address? Are you guys ready for questions?
Always.
Always. Awesome. All right. Anybody have questions?
One thing real quick. We're going to focus mainly on the questions at Laura's place, but if you have questions online, just put them in the Q&A and we see if we can get to those. All right.
And we had some snow in other areas, and so some of our audience is online, I think, with you and might have the questions today too, who couldn't drive in.
All right.
All right, team. I know we couldn't answer them all, and this corner is allowed to ask questions, just saying. Trish? Who has questions? Helmut, do we need the disclaimer today?
No, I think we're good. We had him in all the videos.
Okay. All right. That was Trish's first question. That counts.
Well, we are not AMA, and we don't pretend to be.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you want to read them real quick, just to make sure.
I personally don't have them here.
Oh boy, let me see if I can find them.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Katasa and Katasa Red Door disclaimer. The healing work and teachings that we offer and that you are receiving stem from ancient spiritual healing traditions and are not intended as a medical or psychological service in the allopathic sense of the term. We do not make any medical claims. The ideas, information, procedures, and suggestions we provide are based on those ancient spiritual traditional healing traditions and are not intended as a substitute for consulting with a medical professional. Kay, I, or anyone else working with us shall not be liable or responsible for any loss or damage allegedly arising from anything we provide. Our healing work and teachings are rendered within the context of the ancient traditions they are based on. Everyone receiving healing work or teachings from us is wholly and entirely responsible for their own health and health care. All right.
Great. Is there questions? Oh gosh. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. I think one of the questions we had earlier was Kay, do you have a feel for the average amount of time the bowl can be left open?
With nothing in it, open and empty.
Open and nothing in it.
Just a few minutes, really. Not very long anymore. I would say after 15 or 20 minutes, check yourself. Just see what things feel like. And if it doesn't feel right, if you're starting to feel a little like anxious or tired, that definitely means the bowl's open too long. Depending on the circumstances of where the bowl is sitting and how many people, and how masky they are. That's a Katasi term, meaning all of our programming, all of this stuff and junk that we have stored away inside us of unresolved issues and fear and anger and all those sort of things. We call that masks. So if there's a whole room full of masky people, you might be able to keep it open for 4 hours, maybe 6. Kind of depending on, the flavor of how much masky stuff is going on. But if it's just you and, it's the space, no other people there, it might just be minutes. Depending on your mood, your state of being, whether you're all happy about something, you and your life, or you're all upset about something, and all the old babble voices are back up in your head and swirling around and making all this gnarly feeling inside you. Well, that could earn a couple of hours of open bowl.
I have a question.
When we first started with the bowls, you said we could keep them open for several hours. Could you speak to what has changed energetically on the planet, which is why only a few minutes is necessary now?
Very good question. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, since we have been exploding atomic bombs, which started in the mid-40s, and we started having atomic power plants and other such places, devices, they disrupt subspace. And subspace is like another dimension that's part of our 3D time space, sort of. And we're kind of floating. 3D time space kind of floats on this subspace dimension. The subspace is pure energy, and it carries all the information, all the potentials of absolutely everything, all the blueprint patterns, all knowledge, past, present, future, possibilities. That's what subspace is full of. And it gets birthed into our 3D time space little by little. A lot of that has to do with humans and what humans are thinking about or trying to manifest or what they believe in or afraid of. And all of that brings different energies, different patterns, potentials, and blueprints into 3D time space and begins to manifest them. And the technology of the red door uses subspace. This is fringe science. It can be explained with quantum physics. What this kind of energy that the bowl creates is called a scalar energy, or scalar wave, or scalar field. It has a lot of other names too, but that's probably the most popular. And subspace is full of scalar energy, scalar waves. The geometry of the bowl creates a scalar wave. And it does that because every single type of geometry, every shape, 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, it all creates energy flow, energy lines, energy fields of all types of different frequencies. And you get a more complicated piece of geometry together, you have more energy lines, lots of different frequencies, and these create interactive fields of energy, patterns of energy. So I know the bowl looks really simple, but geometrically and energetically speaking, the bowl is really complex. It's creating many, many different energy lines, flows, fields, different types of patterns. There's big spiral, like spiral galaxy patterns. There's energies that go straight up and down, energies that are spiraling in different kinds of ways. And they're bouncing around into each other and into the inside of the bowl, off the floor, off the inside of the walls. And as they keep doing this and crisscrossing, in the very center, they make a scalar wave. And the scalar wave is what talks to subspace. It becomes part of subspace right there. So when we are putting a representative of a person that we want to send a broadcast to, we call that a witness. We put that inside the bowl. So that's going to define a target. That sounds really cold, but that's really the best kind of way to talk about that. That becomes your target. Because you could have a target of anything. It could be flowers, it could be the dirt, it could be the air, a little creek in your backyard, it could be the animals, it could be humans or parts of humans. So we have our target defined inside the bowl. And then we want to send something to the target, or we want to look at the target and assess it. The scalar wave makes that possible. We, the person using the bowl, a practitioner, can connect through the scalar wave to that target and feel and observe and test, especially with the pendulum. I know you've all been playing with pendulums today. So this is a really good way to tune in to, it's a dowsing method, to tune into what's on the other side of that scalar wave. Because as soon as you put your witness in there, you are connecting instantaneously to whatever is on the other side of that scalar wave, to who the witness represents. They could be anywhere on the planet. They could be on the moon. Actually, there were radionics tests that were with the astronauts that were going up in space and orbiting and going to the moon. And they worked perfectly and instantaneously. The connection is instantaneous because this subspace is not quite 3D time space. It's outside of it. It doesn't obey the laws of 3D time space. So this information doesn't have to go through the space like a wave, like light, a wave, or a radio wave that's waving along, spiraling along through space, taking time to get to the target. This is instantaneous. And there's so much that can be done technologically in subspace and engaging subspace. Many of the free energy devices are dependent on engaging subspace and taking that energy out, drawing energy out of the subspace and bringing it into 3D time space and using it for technology. And that would be that's beautiful technology. It's non-polluting, it's endless, it's free. There's no way people could put a price tag on it. So I've also communicated with alien people that have said the same thing about our use of subspace. We're just barely starting to understand what it might be and how to use it. We're just on baby steps in the fringe. And these atomic explosions disrupt subspace. That's one of the worst things they do. They put out radiation, which makes everything sick, but that isn't anywhere near as bad as the damage to subspace, because the subspace is everywhere. It's everywhere inside us, it's everywhere around us, and all through the entire universe. The subspace is this empty space between material substance, between matter. So if you're looking at atomic level or subatomic particle levels, there's this little bits of space between subatomic particles. That's subspace. You get out into outer space where there's hardly any particles, this, kind of a void out there, vacuum. That's subspace. So it's everywhere. And when we disrupt it, it means the manifesting that our body tries to do on a constant basis. Every microsecond of every day, we are drawing from subspace new matter. We're telling what we want to subspace. It's not on a conscious level, but our physical being tells the subspace that we need some new molecules. We need new atoms. We're going to make better cells. We got some failing cells in this body, and we need some new matter. And we're going to take the failing cells and cause them to totally fall apart into subatomic particles, and then even farther apart and disappear back into subspace. The matter in our bodies are doing this constantly. Every microsecond, our whole body all over is exchanging matter, getting a new, fresh, clean molecules to make new, fresh, clean cells. And with it, blueprints, information, the blueprints, and the energy, life energy. If we're sucking it out of subspace. And it can't happen correctly when subspace has been disturbed in this way. So, for a radionics practitioner, that means all the old-fashioned ones with all it's all electrical, they got all the dials and all this kind of stuff. They have found the same thing through the years, and they've talked about it since the 50s. Because the radionic research started back in the early 1900s, in the teens, 1910, 1912. They realized in the 50s, after several bombs had gone off by then, that the subspace was not operating correctly, that it had been disturbed. And signals that they were sending sometimes didn't arrive to the target. Sometimes it got sent somewhere else, not to the correct target. And especially more easily detectable outside of the time expectancy. We expect these signals to arrive instantaneously. And they weren't. Sometimes it would take a week, months maybe, before the signal would arrive. And I've noticed it myself through the years, that without a program to make an adjustment to fix that as the scalar wave begins to operate with subspace. We don't have our instantaneous action. So in fairly recent years, and I have reason to believe that some of the work that we do with the weaving ceremonies that are designed to reweave the web of the planet Earth, that they have actually helped mend the subspace. And there are probably other factors helping to mend the subspace. And I think that was a really big one. So when I was first working with the bowls, we could easily go 16 hours open and empty with a bowl with just one person. Easily. Before you could feel the disruption. And if you got more than one bowl together and open and empty, it would go faster. And that's still true, which you might notice in the room because you have that opportunity to make several of them open and empty at once and then feel what that feels like. It happens quite fast now.
We're going to skip that.
It used to be that we could leave 3 of them. We'd have 3 or 4 of them open and empty on a bowl and have friends around the table gathering for dinner and fun and chat. We'd just leave them open and empty. And maybe within an hour, people would be getting really relaxed, feeling just a lot more soothed and just letting go. And then they'd start feeling giggly and laughing and maybe they'd sipped a little bit too much wine. So it was kind of a fun experiment to do, but you can't do it anymore because the effect happens way too fast. So it skips that stage. So I hope that answers. It is our really poor choices in the human race and the people that were responsible for making those decisions to decide to keep exploding atomic bombs and making nuclear power plants and other nuclear devices, because they're really, really bad news. If you could just picture what that might be like inside your own body, inside the bodies of plants and animals, the soil, the atmosphere, the bodies of water, your creeks, your lakes, your oceans, even the underground bodies of water, they're affected too. So it means that we can't operate at full capacity, no matter how much we do with all these different types of healing techniques. There's still a little piece that is hard to get to change. I don't think it's impossible, but it makes a difference on how well, how fast your body can regenerate and heal itself. And look around, look at the human population, especially in the modern world. Lots of sick people.
Hey, Kate, this is another Lora. She had some questions she asked me earlier, and I gave her some answers, but I kind of put her to the point of asking them again of you, so she won't hold it against me if you give her different answers. No. But I figured some of her questions might be interesting to hear the answers to for everybody online and in the room too, if that's okay. And you don't mind being on point.
No, I don't mind. One of my questions was about historic trauma. So you had said that it works all through time. You know, like there's no time in the space. Can it heal historic trauma? Let's just say the Native American genocide and my ancestors. If they're willing and open to it, would healing their trauma help with like the trauma that was passed down?
Are you talking about doing healing on people who are living or doing healing on people who have passed away?
Passed away and or healing people that are living?
There isn't any real necessity for trying to heal people who have passed away.
Okay.
In the Peruvian and the ancient Egyptian tradition, the way they look at that is that when Earth humans here on our planet, when they have died, they immediately shed all of the psychological junk and garbage that we build and create and drag around during our lives, and all the garbage that might have connections to other people who are still living. It is just shed. There's no need for them anymore to hang on to any of it. So that means they're instantly, perfectly awake, totally conscious, enlightened, much higher level of consciousness, because at that point of death, our awareness is back inside our totality. This is what the Hedicas call our song. Our song is our totality, that everything that we are as an entity in total. And when we die, we are shedding off the physical body, but the rest of us, which is quite ancient and quite huge and extremely knowledgeable, and it has a very, very expanded level of consciousness, we're back in that level of consciousness again. We close ourselves off to most of that when we have a human life, especially on this planet and in this culture, because the purpose in this culture for most people to be born here is to experience this asleepness, this shutting down, closing off, disconnectedness, the separateness, the belief in fear and hate and evil, all that kind of stuff. We're here to experience those things, and they exist here because we create them so we can experience them here. But once we die, we don't have that need anymore, and we're back into our totality and have full access to everything that we are as an entity. So we no longer need any healing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason, there's no purpose. It that would have no function, really. But the people that are left still need to deal with all that stuff. They still carry it. And they're the ones who could do with some healing. And a lot of this garbage that we're dragging around with us, we learned from our parents and other relatives and grandparents, and they learned it from their parents and grandparents and the people around them and their culture and the ones before them. It just goes on. And we've been dragging the psychological garbage and the patterns of those garbage, the garbage and those beliefs that go along with the garbage. We've been dragging that stuff on for many millennia. That's 1,000 years multiplied many times. We've been dragging it around for a long time. The culture we experience today has been with us maybe as long as 10,000 years. Maybe more. So we do have need to heal that and clean that. And the red door has the capacity to help clean that. Even just letting it sit open and empty for those few minutes every now and then, that helps a huge amount because it's cleaning all of the psychological garbage that's floating in the air, because we make thought forms of that garbage, and the thought forms just go out of us. They fill the space, and they soak into the walls and the floor, and they float around outside, and we keep interacting with those thought forms. We keep engaging them, and we share them with each other, and we encourage each other to pay attention to this thought form, take this on, these beliefs and the injuries and the trauma and all this historical stuff. That's a big piece of how our culture operates. The bowl scoops it right out of the air. It can scoop it right out of your body if you let go of it. It cleans your interior and helps you kind of see, learn, understand what all that levels and layers, centuries of garbage that you've been dragging around, what that is, what they are, and that you don't have to believe in them anymore. You don't have to participate in them anymore. You can let them go. The bowl helps you do it. Makes it really easy, and it fills up the space that's left. Whenever you clean out something in any kind of healing, psychological healing, or you're cleaning the thought form out of the room, or you're cleaning disease out of the body, you leave a kind of space, a kind of vacuum there. And if you don't fill it up purposefully right away with something good and healing, full of life energy and love and song and well-being, those kind of things, then other garbage will just come right in. It'll just swoop in to fill up a vacuum, because that's nature. So whenever we are healing something, taking something out that we don't want, changing a pattern that we don't want, we have to replace it with something that we do want. That's kind of the basic idea of doing red door healings or ancient energy healings. You take out things that shouldn't be there, they don't need to be there, they're unhealthy, and you replace it with things that are really healthy and helpful and help well-being on all levels, full of life energy and light and love, peace, happiness. And very often, pieces of information and blueprint that can help repair tissue. Say you've got a sick liver. Our culture has led you to have a damaged liver, which unfortunately is seriously common in our culture. I mean, really, really, really common. So You can work on that with the bowl. You can take out the damaged parts and you can transform all that energy, send it into subspace with the radionics, with the bowl, and fill it up with purposeful, conscious choices of the proper blueprint for liver, lots of life energy, sunlight, healing, health, well-being, love, love, love. Always lots of love, love, love. Does that answer? All right.
Did you have, Laura, did you have any other questions? No. You were full of them earlier, so I'm just saying. She's right there. Well, she's a few states away, but she's right there. Jennifer has a question. Do you want to go? That one might come easier.
So to kind of piggyback, so to piggyback on that question, I would like to hear more about when we talked about permission the last time, when we're doing healings, and it's also to not intervene with life purpose or life path of having that experience. When do we not need permission? When we have an intention, like what Laura was asking about, for deep healing of the thought forms around cultural experiences and thought forms that seep into the land that atrocities have occurred, do we need permission for that, or can we, with that intention of loving and nurturing and healing and removing the blocks that those thought forms create and perpetuate, do we need permission for that?
Everything always starts with permission. Yeah. I've never been refused for cleaning thought forms out of a room, a space, a building, the land, the space. Never been refused when I ask permission.
Okay, so
but sometimes the refusal does come when I'm working on a person or a pet, somebody's animals, maybe a plant, where they've made their purpose in life choice that this is the end of their life. They've already made that choice. They may not be conscious of it. These are not things that we decide with our linear mind consciously that, oh, I'm going to get sick now and I'm going to die of this illness. But it's on a very deep subconscious level. This is what our entity has designed. This is the plan for this life. And when that has been engaged, and that's a for sure decision, they aren't going to turn around on it. When you ask permission to work on them, whether it's with the red door or it's the ancient energy healing techniques, you're very likely to be told no. Or something simple like, the only thing that you can do is give lots of love or peace. Or the only thing you can take away is the fear. Sometimes you're told not to take away the fear. And that would be because the person came to experience that kind of fear. It's part of their life purpose. And we cannot interfere with somebody else's life purpose.
So that ties into assumptions about what people would want. And if part of their identity, very strong identity, is around those thought forms, around ancestry and, cultural identity, then as one of the no-nos is no assumptions. Now, we cannot assume that everybody wants to be free of those strong beliefs around identity and purpose. So that goes back to the permission that you're talking about. And those who want to be free from those beliefs, then they would give permission, and those who it would make sense, quote unquote, that they would want to be free of them, but truly there's a deep connection to their identity and they don't want to let them go. And it doesn't make sense. They wouldn't want to let them go. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It doesn't make sense to us in our terms of how we would like to see ourselves or our life, or especially when it comes to loved ones. You know, it's your parents or it's your children or your siblings, your best friend for, many, many, many years. You can't choose those things for them. And yeah, you would like to see that they're not suffering. You don't want to have to watch them suffer. But sometimes that's part of their purpose. And even if you decided to go against the permission, throw a bunch of stuff in the bowl, and they're witnessing there, and you're trying to broadcast that they are, relieved of their pain or their fear, whatever it is, it's not going to work. It will not work one speck, not one iota.
That was good. I actually was going to ask that same question as follow-up.
You guys are jumping into the deep side of the pool.
I know. This is my theory, is those classes were really good, that this is what's left with the questions, is the deep side of the pool. So I know there's some questions online.
Yeah, there's one question that fits in here. It's about permission, expanding on that. So let's go to that real quick, huh? It's from Diane, and she's asking regarding obtaining permission. If you are planning to bring a bowl into a public place, do you need permission only from the place, even if numerous people will come into that place?
No, you can take the bowl. People, their systems will interact with the energy of the bowl, and if they're not giving permission for any of their thought forms and old garbage to be lifted and moved away, even just for a few minutes, it's not going to affect them. It's just not going to happen.
Okay. For the people online, if you have more questions, we'll get to the ones that are on there. But if you have more, just put them in the Q&A and we'll see how far we get. All right, Laura.
I had a quick sharing. The traveling bags, the best traveling bags for these bowls, we call them bowling bags, is the crock pot carriers, because this one carries 2 bowls and can be found on Amazon. It has a handle and stuff. Me personally, and I think Jennifer probably, we've talked about going out into local Starbucks and other places and having coffee, but bringing our bowls and just doing some, well, one, it feels better for us when we go out in places. We're used to clearing no matter what, but the bowls do their own stuff so we could chat, but doing more, creating a bowling teams that could go out to hospitals and coffee shops and carry them. So if you are looking for good carrying bags, because you do want to use your bowl, take it from the office or in the crock pot. Online, easy to find, inexpensive. The crock pot insulated bags work like a charm until we eventually design our own. But yeah, right now, crock pot bags.
Looks perfect.
Yeah, it works really
well. Similar sort of, almost like a backpack, but more like that. looking more like that. And every time we have traveled someplace and we have suitcases, we have at least one bowl in the suitcase. And we, take things like the socks and put them inside the bowl. It can't broadcast with all that stuff in there, but that's okay. It allows you to not take up quite so much room inside your suitcase. Doesn't look quite so funny to people looking in the X-ray machine. I like the bag that you found. Works well. When you go to places like this, you don't have to have the bowl open and empty to be able to suck out all the cooties. You could have the World Healing card in there or some other program. Say you've got yourself in there with a program you've been running for yourself and you don't want to stop it. That's okay. Leave it in. The bowl is still cleaning the space that it's in, even though it's working on a target.
Hey, Kay, Jennifer had a question. X-ray machines. If you're traveling with it, is there going to be problems with X-ray machines to the bowl?
It doesn't hurt it.
Okay. What about saran wrap? I've always thought about, traveling to make sure all the rates stay in and a little bit of saran wrap on top. Is that a problem?
It shouldn't be. Not too much of a problem. What I've done, I put the rates, little pieces of paper, all in a baggie, and put the baggie in the bowl. And that's, you've got it corralled. It works a lot better. I remember taping a baggie inside the bowl with Scotch tape, and that worked okay.
And
I
then
would have to test the saran wrap to see if it created enough of a surface that the scalar wave couldn't be formed.
Okay. So then if you put the baggie in, these are real technical terms, there are technical stuff, would you then put your socks in? Clean socks, man.
No, once you've loaded it with socks to the brim, you're stopping the scalar wave from being created. So it's not going to broadcast. The stuff that was going in our suitcase and going down, even the carry-on. I often had it in the carry-on. That goes through the X-ray machine for sure. It's not going to harm anything, but it's not broadcasting. If you wanted to have it in a case and have other things in the case too, you're going to have to arrange it in such a way that your baggie doesn't slip out of the bowl and something else doesn't slip in.
Slipping in part. I didn't even think about that one. Now you got my mind spending.
There's one more follow-up, Laura, about that. Belinda is asking, is it easy to get the bowl to the airport?
It always was. I think the last time we went on a plane was to our daughters in Denver. How many years ago was that? It was after 9/11 for sure. It's been a few years. Different airports are different. Some of them have really, really strict security, bigger airports, big cities. Some of the tiny airports that are in, this little out-of-the-way towns, their security isn't quite so intense. Oh, no, I think we went to our daughters was the last thing. I was thinking of the book tour, but that was even before that. But we've taken bowls everywhere we go, whether we've been in a plane or in the car. Nobody seemed to notice. It just looks like a salad bowl or something. And it's wood, so it's not going to register funny on their machines. They have special X-ray machines that can detect certain types of substances and things that look like plastic explosives, certain kinds of liquid. They can detect it as a danger. And it'll set off the alarm, it'll drag you to the side and go through every piece of your luggage. We've never had any kind of problem.
I was just curious, what type of wood is the bowl made out of? It looks like it's laminated, but I don't know if it is. I was just curious. Thank you.
Helmut?
We have tried many different things. We have tried some really fancy hardwoods, and it was really difficult to make. And then we went to high-end plywood, and we did a test, and the lady that produces them worked with it and did some experiments on what works best and how to produce them best. And finally, she ended up with what we have today. And it is laminates. It is high-end plywood, which sounds, plywood is not inspiring fancy stuff, but she does. She picks very, very elegant pieces of plywood, and then she produces them, and that's the result. We find that making them with this material allows for the least. It doesn't really allow for it to move at all. When you have solid wood, when it goes to a moist area, it expands and it changes the measurements and the dimensions. But with plywood, the way it's produced now, that just doesn't happen, and it doesn't get any cracks, and it's just very solid and very durable. So that's what it's made of.
This is a very interesting plywood. It's not like most of the others. The materials that are used, like a glue between the layers of the plywood, it's different than standard plywood and very different than cheap plywood. The first one we tried was cheap plywood, and the bowl will not create a scalar wave with those chemicals in the material. So this stuff is perfect.
Okay, more questions, Laura?
Any more questions in this room? I think this room, oh.
So speaking of the fact that it's made from wood, would it be different, say, if it was made the exact same shape from metal?
Metal does not work that well. It's too conductive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it can be poisonous.
Well, it could be, depending on which metal, it could be poisonous. Yeah. There was a guy that made a similar thing. It was not anywhere near as exact. It's up in Canada. And he was experimenting with lead and poured lead. But it broadcasts the frequency of lead into every broadcast, not to mention lead poisoning from touching it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, heavy. Yeah.
We had one made out of stone.
Oh.
My dear friend Dorothy, who we started off with the radionics together. We were in the taking the Egyptian class together, and the Egyptian teacher turned us on to the radionics teacher and recommended that we do this. And so I was real interested, and she was. And so we took that class and some more. And she bought a bunch of the devices, the radionics machines. So kind of lost my train of thought where I was headed with that.
Stone.
Oh, the stone. Yes. Dorothy had a lot more money. I had no money. And we wanted to experiment with creating a stone bowl, especially something like granite, because it's made out of crystals. It's small crystals all mooshed together into a solid lump. Any kind of stone is really hard to work, especially trying to make that kind of shape. But granite is one of the hardest, and so it's really, really, really hard. But we found a crazy guy who was willing to do it, to try. And he wasn't charging us very much money for it because, he didn't know if he could succeed. But he was very curious. He wanted to see what that was like. And he did create one. The outside is not cut in any way. It's very rough. The inside is what he concentrated on, and that's the important part. And it's fairly close. For the material granite, it's close enough. So that Dorothy has that bowl. Has been using it for about 25 years.
Oh, cool.
I got to see the bowl. It's pretty cool. I got down to Eugene and visited with Dorothy and saw the first bowl. She's still using it.
Cool.
It's got a precious spot. Any other questions in this room? How much do you have a question online?
Yeah, we got a bunch of questions here. You guys don't have anything else? You good?
Not yet. Keep talking and they could. But apparently they're good.
All right, here's another question from Diane. And how important is intent when getting up the bowl? Would the raids be effective even if a strong intent wasn't there when they were added? Would the bowl be more effective if you did a ceremony or meditation to create the broadcast?
No ceremony or meditation is needed for the bowl, but it might be for you. So the very first thing that we teach with the Red Door is to get extremely relaxed and develop a meditative state. Get your brain waves so that you have a lot of alpha brain waves, maybe a lot of theta brain waves as well. So you're in a really quiet, peaceful, relaxed, meditative state when you sit down to work. And that way, you're going to be able to connect and be able to get really, really good results. You don't have to have a really clear, strong intent as you put the material into the bowl to broadcast to your target, because the intent has already been put into the material itself. And there's huge thought forms. Radionics has been in existence for 100 years, or more than 100 years. People have been developing these rates and these programs, the concepts, and using them for all those years. It's more than a century. And that develops a very big, strong thought form. So when we use the created material and the rates that have been used, we have a really strong tie-in to the thought form, which helps bring a lot more life energy, a lot more intent, a lot more clarity into the broadcast. Anytime that you have the opportunity to get a very strong, clear intent of what you want. What is the effect you want to have? What are you trying to create with your broadcast? And even write that down in a statement and put that in with anything else, all the rates or whatever that you're using into the bowl, and broadcast that. That creates a much more powerful, coherent stream of energies and intent. The bowl sends information and energy, all kinds of different energies and all kinds of different information. But that's basically how you would describe it: information and energies. So anytime you can laser in with a real specific idea and concept of what you want to affect, it works better. It's clearer, it's faster, it works better. Sometimes we don't have that time. Sometimes we're kind of in an emergency, in a rush, and we need to put something in the bowl to help somebody, like right now, and get as much help as we can. And then later, when we have more time, we can sit down and formulate, concentrate, focus, meditate on something that's a little more polished and precise, more coherent. I hope that's making sense.
If you have any new questions, Laura, from your group, just jump in. I'm going to keep going with what's here.
I think everybody's good here. We might, some people had to leave, so we may lose a couple of people, but keep going.
All right. Margie is asking, does subspace repair itself?
When it's allowed to, yes, of course. Yes, nature always repairs itself. When we keep blowing up more bombs and creating more nuclear power plants, and more power plants are exploding and spewing their radiation everywhere and disrupting subspace, it doesn't get the chance to repair itself. So that's why we have spent since the mid-40s with an injured subspace, and it just kept getting worse. It just kept getting worse and worse, and creating more and more difficulties in trying to get the signals to go through subspace and end up at the right target at the right time. But people found a way around it. People have a remarkable engineering and ingenuity. So if we could get all that nuclear stuff stopped, then it would repair itself on its own.
Okay. I hope that answered that. Next question is from Belinda. I have very little knowledge of the bowl as of now. My question is it necessary to always have a target in the bowl at all times and rarely have it be empty?
Pretty much. Yeah, you don't want it what we call empty and open. Nothing covering it. It's sitting upright. There's nothing in it. That's empty and open. And that's when it's cleaning the space out the strongest and the fastest. And that's when we can only leave it in that state for very short periods of time. And that's going to vary depending on how much food it has to eat up, how much negative thought forms it has to eat up. So yeah, having a target in there, otherwise covering it with the red cloth. Fire engine red, completely covered. That will turn it off.
Did you mention the World Healing card?
Not yet, but I'm about to. So what we tend to put in there is this, the World Healing card. And this is a program that is designed to send healing to the entire Earth and to the subspace, to all life on Earth, to the planet itself, to our atmosphere, to all the levels of dirt and rock under our feet, all the waters, all the plants, animals, people. These symbols are they're there to carry, to convey very large pieces of very specific information about the healing to the whole planet and to the whole web of life of the planet Earth. Because that's basically the bottom line of what we need to heal. When we're healing a human, we have to heal that blueprint, the web. When we want to heal the planet, we have to heal its blueprint, the web of life. And you hear the ancients, primitive peoples, talking about this in so many different ways in their own vernacular, their own symbology, but they've been talking about it for many, many, many millennia. And so this is what we have in our bowls when they're not being used to broadcast to a specific, a person or somebody's pet or the yard or even the whole house, the house and the property. I hope that answers.
Okay, I had to answer a chat here. I'll be going to the. Here's a question from Anne, and I sent her a link. She's asking about how much does the bowl cost? How do we buy one? How do we get training on how to use it? And how do you need and do you need the training before you can buy it? I will share the link to most of that information online here. Lora has a sheet for you with a link also where you can get most of that information. The training is a class coming up this next weekend on Sunday, and you do not need the training to get a bowl, but you certainly want to consider it because it teaches you how to use it. But it does come with basic instructions. So if you really don't want to take the training, that's an option too. But you get a lot more out of it, I think, if you take the training. And there is another question from Anne. And let me look real quick. So these were the questions from Anne. I will post the link, like I said, towards the end of the webinar, so you can concentrate on the questions. But on that page, you get all that information: how to get one, how to join the class, and you also can have ways to contact me there. And Lora again will hand you the same information up in Aurora. And the next question here is, suppose you are living with other people and you don't want to explain the bowl to them. Can you put it in a closet, even in an old house with some very weird energy? All right.
Well, if you you can see behind me, that's a closet. It's a very small walk-in closet that we've put shelves all the way around the three sides and then top to bottom. And we have, on an average of 100 bowls at a time. Many of them are broadcasting to people, a couple of them to some pets, got one to the property, and the others that are there waiting for a home. They need to be adopted. They have the world card sitting in them. If I don't have a client that needs a bowl, or a family member with an injury that needs the bowl, it has the world card in it. So, closets work. You don't want things too close to the top of your bowl. So if you've got shelves and you're going to, have the top shelf is really close like this, that's starting to interrupt the field that makes the scalar wave. So having just a little bit more space is a lot more efficient. And it doesn't matter whether the door is opened or closed. This door is almost always open because I go in and out all the time.
Okay, I hope that answered that.
Well, she mentioned weird energies. The bowl, even though you might have a world healing card in there, it is still cleaning the space wherever it's at. It's still doing the cleaning. And it might end up cleaning all of that bizarre energy out. That's what our experience has told us through all these years.
All right. Asta has a question. Would I like to make sure if I understand it correctly. Can the bowl still broadcast if it is put in a bag and the bag is closed?
Probably. It kind of depends on the material. Sometimes when we've carried one around like that, or we had a friend that took her bowl with her everywhere. And she had a bag that looked kind of like that, and she would leave it open. And people can't really see. They're not looking inside your bag that you're dragging around with you. But it had a big strap so she could carry it over her shoulder. She took it everywhere. Shopping, everything. She just would not be without her bowl. So you could just leave it open or partially open. I would test. Use your pendulum, ask good questions, a series of questions, and test to see how efficient, how effective it is behaving inside that bag.
Okay. I hope that answered that, Asta. Another question from Margie. When healing others with red bowl, you mentioned you receive a number come back. This number is from 1 to 100. How does the number come back to you? Before you answer that, we're up to the last question. So if anybody has any more, just post them online and go ahead. 1 to 100.
Well, this is what the class is mainly about, is the training on how to acquire these numbers, and what do they mean, and how do you use them. Well, here is our typical pendulum, and you use the pendulum with the bowl. Some of you may not be all that familiar with a pendulum, but it's an ancient tool. The ancient Egyptians used pendulums. They had some really, really beautiful ones. Having a sphere for the shape on the bottom was very popular and considered very efficient, very effective. So you're using this, swinging it like this over the bowl. You ask a question, and it'll start swinging like in one direction, or maybe the other direction. And you have set up in your mind ahead of time that if it swings this way, maybe that's a yes. If it swings the other way, that would be a no. And you ask questions that are a yes-no basis. There's other more advanced ways of using the pendulum and asking questions that are a little different than the yes-no base, but that's part of the whole advanced training. Meanwhile, the questions are really important. You have to have the right questions. You have to formulate them well in order to get the information that you're hunting for. So you get really good at asking questions, reformulating the question, asking it again, trying to ask in a whole different kind of a way until it gets very narrowed down, very clear in your mind and focused like a laser, and you can get the answers you need. That's what the class is. There's a lot more in the class too, but without having a dowsing method to go with the bowl, you might have to hunt for some other kind of psychic way to get that information. The dowsing is a psychic activity, and it's what we would call spirit abilities. The abilities of our spirit to these would be things like telepathy and all kinds of good woodgy things. So when we are learning how to dowse, learning how to work with the red door, we're training ourselves to bring back to life the non-linear part of our being, the feminine, the female part, the spiritual part of our whole being, and then utilizing both the linear part, and like our linear mind, with the non-linear, with the spiritual. You have to have the two together. They have to fit together to be able to operate these things, to be able to perform any spirit abilities. But the red door teaches you, and it's fun.
Okay. Another question from Belinda. Actually, one of the questions from Belinda is about the pendulum and if it comes with the red door. And yes, your first red door comes with a pendulum.
That it's looks almost exactly like this, although I have a particular kind of little red bead. I have something a little bit bigger, a little different on the top. But otherwise, the chain and this ball, this is the preferred pendulum. The ball is plastic. It's a particular kind of plastic. And it is very inert. It doesn't hold on to electrons, and it doesn't hold on to any kind of electromagnetic field. It doesn't hold on to thought forms. And it's because of its shape and its weight and the plastic quality, it connects to, it bounces on the field of the bowl really, really well. And I think if you haven't done that where you are with the bowls at Lora's right now, that's something you guys can try. is to feel what it feels like to move the pendulum over the bowl and then go away from the bowl and move the pendulum. See if you can feel that field, that it's different. It's subtle, so you have to be kind of quiet in yourself. Be still and relaxed and quiet in yourself and feel the energy. Use the pendulum to feel the energy field that's in the top of the bowl and how it's different. So you would be over the bowl for a while, go over the wall, so you feel that, then go all the way way far away from it, feel that. The more you do it, the more you feel, the more sensitive you get to what that feeling is, and it becomes more and more pronounced.
All right, we're just gonna keep going unless we hear from the Aurora people. Next question is from Diane. Going back to the ancestral pain trauma discussion, do you believe our physical bodies carry that ancestral pain trauma in our cells or blueprints?
Not in the blueprints, but yeah, we carry it, we drag it around, and it gets embedded into the molecular structure because it's an energy. All this stuff is this thought forms. It's an energy. And the molecules will pick it up and it will become embedded into the molecular structure, which means, yeah, it'll be part of your cells. It'll also be part of things that are not actually exactly inside a cell, but outside, between the cells. We've got a lot of stuff there and a lot of fluid. This kind of energy, it easily gets soaked up by the fluids in the body, by the water, and by other parts, proteins and other molecules and the atoms. And then that junk just sits there and vibrates at its own set of frequencies. It's reliving the same stuff, and it radiates it out. And it can make your body sick, can make those cells sick, and the organs sick, and their body sick. And it can be there your entire life. And some of that stuff, we picked it up from our parents. It didn't, it's not that these things are inherited in the way we have come to think of DNA being inherited and that kind of thing. It's not passed on that way. We're not born with this junk. We're born without any masks at all. So what we do is we learn it. It's around us. It's being lived and felt and thought and vibrated from our parents, from all the people around us. We copy it. We pick it up. We empathize with it and draw it into ourselves and make it part of our own physical body and our own energetic body. I hope that answers.
All right, next question from Belinda. What happens to the energy that is pulled into the bowl? Does the bowl dissipate that energy?
It does. It sends a lot of it back into subspace. It transforms some of it and sends it back into the space that you're in. But it's been transformed into pure life energy.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Diane is asking, is permission granted via the pendulum just as good as verbal permission from the client? Is it possible for someone to say no verbally, but the pendulum says yes?
Well, we teach all this in the class. This is a big part of the healing teachings, and also in the ancient energetic healing processes, we do the same kind of permission, and it's in steps. The first permission that we ask for is like verbal or written. It's physical. And sometimes you might not have an opportunity to get that. Say you passed a car accident on the road and you stopped to see if you could help, or even if you're just still driving by and you want to help, you feel drawn to help, you can ask permission of the spirit of that person for being able to work on them right then and there. And that's good. But most of the time, you really need some kind of verbal or written permission. And then, when you start the work, you're asking with your pendulum, and you got it over the bowl. And some of the very first questions that we use with this pendulum and the bowl are these permission questions. Now, say we've gotten the written permission from somebody who wants a healing. Next thing is you have to ask their spirit and the spirits that we work with, their spirit helpers, your own spirit helpers. Do I have permission to work on this person at this time? And if you get that no, then you need to ask other questions. Is there something that you could do? Something that you could broadcast to them that might help, even though this is something with their life purpose and we're not allowed to tamper with it. And, you got to be okay with the answers that you get. Sometimes they just say, no, you can't do anything. You have to leave it alone. But you can't help but to give concern and love. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this. It's sort of something as a human being, as an entity, we have concern and we have love and we're giving love. And you can always give love. That's good. It's okay. But if they say, no red door, you got to honor that. So we start with those permissions, and then we have a whole list of protocols of different kinds of questions to ask, and questions about body parts. Okay, which body system or which organ has been hurt? What needs to be worked on? And so we'll ask yes and no questions about that. And when we have put together enough information and found enough rates of things that test positive, this person would benefit from this particular rate, then we have to ask permission. Is this okay? Can I broadcast this rate or this group of rates? Do I have permission to do that? And you'll get a yes or a no. And you can ask other questions, similar, like, would this group of rates be effective? Is there something else I can do that would be more effective? Is there something in this group of rates that I should not use? Take out of that group. So that's what the whole class is about, is learning about all these different kinds of questions and how to put it all together and make good programs efficient and effective and loving programs to help.
Okay, I got one more question here from Diane. Even if you have no...
Laura's waving.
Oh, Laura is waving. Just jump in, Laura, when you...
I don't interrupt. And this can wait to the end. John had a question right before he left about if the classes were going to be recorded, so that, you know, that he works on Sundays or has something on most Sundays. And so he was asking if the class was going to be recorded so he could still learn it, pick it up on later.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Always.
Great.
Yeah, it's designed that way so that you can always go back. You can download the class, which I highly recommend that you do, so that you can go back and get the lesson again, repeat parts of it or all of it over and over and over. Because you'd be surprised how much is in there, how much detail. And we don't always remember that when we go through the class just once. We don't remember all these little things. But it'll be there. The material is there.
And we're not certain yet that all the classes will be on Sundays, but we decided to start out with the first one on Sunday.
That was it.
All right. Next question from Diane. Great question. Even if you have no known spirit ability, can you still get valid answers from the pendulum?
Yeah. Everybody has spirit abilities. It's part of human nature. It's who and what we are. We have these abilities. Many, many of them. They're just atrophied. That's all. We've just been told they don't exist. And so being a little tiny kid, a baby, a toddler, a little kid, we believe it. They don't exist. And so many of us, most of us probably, give up and just start living in a way where we turn all that stuff off. Hearing other people's thoughts, feeling their feelings, knowing when something else is going to happen, knowing who's going to call before they call, the phone rings. All that kind of stuff. Those are spirit abilities. And everybody has them. We just have shoved them under the carpet. Now it's time to bring it back out and shake some life into them and exercise them.
Okay, one more from Belinda. Is it also possible to assist an artist or writer who is blocked creatively with the bowl, or to use the bowl to increase their creativity?
Yes. That gets into some very interesting parts of how to utilize the red door. Different things that you can do with it. And we're talking about working with your own psychological nature or somebody else's. And that means working with their masks, that collection of historical garbage that tends to control our lives and our thinking and our believing and our feelings, and just controls everything, puts us to sleep. So when we are working with that kind of thing with the red door, we can be our own worst enemy. We often have masks and beliefs that say, oh, we're no good at this, or I can't do this, or I'll never be any good, and all that kind of internal negative babble. And those are beliefs that a person carries about themselves that they've picked up along the way. That's part of the garbage pile. And you can put stuff in the red door that can help you. If you work with it, it'll help you clear that stuff out, clean it out. But you got to do the work too. You got to pay attention to yourself and what you're thinking, or if it's what you're working on someone else trying to help them, they have to start paying attention to what's going on inside them and their own mind babble, and consciously, purposefully help themselves let go of all that, the garbage, the lies. We carry a lot of lies with us, and we believe in the lies, and they control our lives. And the bowl can help quite a bit to help loosen it up, get you to see it, understand it, and let go. I hope that makes some sense and helps.
Okay, I think we are at the end of questions here. I'm going to share the link where you can sign up for the class, purchase the Red Door, and contact me if you have more questions. And as I said, Lora has the same information for all you guys up there. Any more questions from you?
We're good in here. We just, I'm going to speak on everybody's, thank you. On everybody's behalf in here. Thanks you for making this time for us and helping participate. It's fun. I mean, and I'm thankful for everybody who showed up today. It's definitely been a little bit of a bowling party. It was fun. But we're good, very good today. And again, people on line 2 can always email me their questions. If Kay and Helmut are too intimidating, send them to me. But I can say honestly, they're not intimidating, and they'll answer any questions. But I'm happy to answer them too, as a newbie in this world, and what I don't know, I always forward on to them. But I can say honestly, I think I started this in just 2015, and addicted. You know, it's like it's my one bowl became 17 bowls, that addicted to them and using them in every which way from Sunday. My hope is that more people put them in their homes, you know, and not that I don't want to hoard them here, but the idea of having more bowls spread out, just that alone in this world would be amazing. Absolutely amazing. So thank you, Kay, for pushing the limits of your curiosity and and creating something that really is really easy to use and doing big things. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
This was great. This was beautiful. Thanks. Great seeing the familiar faces again and old friends again. Nice. Beautiful. Thank you for putting this together. And thank you, everybody, for joining in person and online. And thank you, Kay.
You're most welcome. Thank you, everybody. Laura, Helmut, for putting it together. Thank you, everybody, for coming. So good to see you all.
Bye.
Love you.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.